The city was quiet but not peaceful. The streets were wide, lit with strange blue lights, and tall alien towers watched over every step. Shadows moved fast and whispers floated in the air like smoke. Everyone kept their heads down, pretending not to see, but they all saw. Down the middle of the street, alien soldiers walked in a straight line. In their hands, they dragged a small figure. It was a little girl, her skin pale and glowing faintly under the lights. Her eyes, silver and bright, looked scared but also strong. She tried not to cry, but her small voice broke the silence. "Please don't take me, please," she whispered. The crowd stood on both sides, silent. Mothers held their children close. Old men looked away. No one dared to move. Everyone knew the law. No one could stop the soldiers. The little girl was called cursed, dangerous, unwanted, and the council had given the order. She must be taken away. Among the silent crowd stood one human. His name was Daniel. He was tall, not strong like the alien soldiers, but steady. His eyes followed the girl as she stumbled. Her small hands tried to pull free, but the soldier's grip was hard like iron. Daniel's heart began to beat fast. He was only a visitor in this city. A simple engineer traveling between worlds. He had no reason to interfere. But when he looked into her glowing silver eyes, something deep inside him stirred. The soldiers pulled her roughly and she fell on the ground. Her knees scraped against the cold stone floor. The crowd gasped, but no one moved. Daniel stepped forward without thinking. He reached out his hand as if to help her stand. But another soldier shouted, "Stay back, human." "This is council business." Daniel froze. He could feel the eyes of everyone around him. The fear, the silence, the weight of the law pressing down. But he could also hear her voice, soft but desperate. She looked up at him and whispered again, "Please, help me." Those words cut deeper than any weapon. Daniel had heard pleas before on Earth in war zones and disasters, but this voice was different. It was the voice of a child who had no one. The soldiers pulled her again. Dragging her down the street, Daniel clenched his fists. He could walk away. He could stay safe. He could pretend it was not his problem. But deep in his human heart, he knew the truth. If he turned away now, that little girl would be lost forever. The night air grew colder. The soldiers marched toward a large black transport at the end of the street. Its metal doors opened with a hiss. Waiting like the jaws of a monster, Daniel's chest tightened. Every step they took closer to that ship, the harder his choice became. The law said if he acted, he would be punished. But his humanity said, if he did nothing, he was no better than the silent crowd. The girl looked back one last time, her silver eyes locked with his, full of fear but also hope, and in that moment, Daniel made a silent promise. He would not let her vanish. He would not let her go into that ship alone. The soldiers pushed her forward, but Daniel stepped into their path. The crowd gasped again, louder this time. "Human, move aside," a soldier ordered, raising his weapon. Daniel felt his heart pounding like thunder. He was unarmed, outnumbered, far from his own world. But he stood tall, his voice steady. "She is just a child," he said. "You cannot do this." The street fell into complete silence. Even the night wind seemed to stop. Everyone stared, not believing what they had just seen. A human, just one human, daring to stand against the council's soldiers. The girl's lips trembled, her small hand reached toward him. For the first time that night, there was a spark of hope in her eyes. The soldiers stepped closer, their weapons glowing. Daniel knew he had only seconds before the fight began. But his decision was made. He would not run. He would not hide. He would stand. And in that silent alien city, a new story began. The story of one human, one little alien girl, and a choice that would change the fate of many worlds. The soldiers stared at Daniel with cold alien eyes. Their weapons glowed with red light, ready to strike. The crowd did not move. Their fear kept them frozen like statues. But Daniel did not step aside. He stood between the little girl and the soldiers, his heart heavy but unshaken. The leader of the soldiers, tall and armored in black steel, raised his hand. "Human," he said with a deep voice, "you break our law. No one may protect the cursed child. She belongs to the council, and to interfere is death." Daniel felt the weight of those words. The air grew heavy, the crowd trembled. Everyone knew the law. It was older than memory. The cursed child was forbidden, and whoever tried to save her was punished. But Daniel's eyes did not leave the little girl. She looked at him with silver eyes filled with fear, and he thought, What kind of law calls a child cursed? The leader stepped closer. You are human, not one of us. You do not understand, he said. This girl carries danger inside her. She is not a child. She is a threat. She must be removed before she brings ruin. Daniel shook his head slowly. She is only a child, he answered. I see no monster here. Only fear in her eyes. The soldier's jaw tightened, his armor clicking as he gripped his weapon tighter. You know nothing of her kind, the leader said. Her blood holds an ancient power. If it wakes, it will tear our world apart. The words spread through the crowd like fire. People whispered, covering their mouths with fear. But Daniel did not flinch. If her blood truly had power, then why did she look so weak, so fragile? She was small, trembling, held down by rough hands. She looked more like a lost child than a weapon. The soldier lifted his weapon high. Step aside, human. This is your last warning, he growled. Daniel's breath slowed, his body tense. He knew one wrong move would end his life. But something in him refused to step back. Humanity was built on protecting the weak. On standing against injustice, he could not betray that now. Not here, not in front of her then. Before the weapon could strike, the little girl spoke. Her voice was small but carried through the silent street. My name is Lyra, she said, trembling. I am not cursed. I am not evil. Her words made the crowd stir, heads turning, eyes widening. It was the first time anyone had heard her speak. The soldiers looked uneasy for a moment, but quickly pulled her closer. Silence, one of them hissed. You have no name, no voice. No right. Daniel's anger burned. He stepped forward, his voice sharp. You strip her of a name, of hope, of life, and you call it law. Where I come from, a child's voice matters. Where I come from, even the smallest life is worth saving. The soldier's eyes narrowed. You are foolish, human, he said. You will learn that our law is not to be broken. And then he gave the order. Take the girl and kill the human. The soldiers moved fast, their weapons flashing. But Daniel was quicker than they expected. He grabbed a piece of broken metal pipe from the ground. It was not a real weapon, but it was all he had. He swung hard, knocking one soldier back. The crowd gasped, fear and shock filling the air. A human had struck the council's soldiers. Lyra's eyes widened, her voice shaking. You will die if you fight them, she whispered. But Daniel shook his head. I will die if I don't, he said. Because I cannot live with myself if I leave you. The soldiers regrouped. Surrounding him, their blades hummed with energy. Glowing brighter, Daniel's chest rose and fell fast. Sweat on his forehead. He knew he could not win against them all. But he stood firm because even if he fell, he would show them that humanity did not bow to fear. And then, something strange happened. Lyra's silver eyes began to glow brighter. A faint light pulsed from her skin, spreading across the ground like ripples in water. The soldiers froze, their weapons shaking slightly. She is awakening, one of them whispered in horror. The leader's face darkened. Restrain her. Now, but Daniel stepped between them again, his body shielding hers. No, he said firmly. You fear her, but I see no curse, only life. Your law is not justice. It is fear wearing a mask. The crowd was no longer silent. Whispers grew louder, some voices trembling, others daring. She is just a child, someone muttered. Why must she die? Another whispered. For the first time, doubt moved through the city. The law, so unbroken for so long, was being questioned. The soldiers grew angrier. Sensing the shift, the leader shouted, Silence this human before he poisons more minds. Daniel held his pipe tightly, ready to fight until the end. Lyra clutched his arm, her small fingers cold and shaking. Her eyes looked into his, full of fear but also something new. Hope and Daniel realized in that moment the truth. The law was not only about Lyra, it was about control, about keeping power through fear, and by standing here, by refusing to move, he had broken that fear. Even if he fell tonight, the story would spread. A human had stood against the forbidden law, and the galaxy would never forget it. The soldiers raised their weapons, the crowd held its breath. Daniel tightened his grip, his heart steady. He knew the fight was coming, but he also knew this was only the beginning. Because he had chosen to stand, and once a human stands, they do not kneel. The night city was alive with danger. Daniel held Lyra's hand tightly as they ran, their feet hitting the cold stone streets. Behind them, the alien soldiers shouted, their boots striking hard and loud. The sound of weapons charging filled the air like thunder. They were being hunted, and there was no place to hide. Lyra's breath came fast, her small legs struggling to keep up. "Run," Daniel urged softly. "Don't let go of my hand." Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, making her easy to spot. Daniel quickly pulled a ragged cloak from a market stall and threw it over her. "Keep your head down," he whispered. She nodded, but her small hands trembled. The city streets twisted like a maze, narrow alleys between tall, glowing towers. Strange creatures peered from windows. Watching silently, some looked curious, others afraid. None brave enough to help. Daniel knew he could not trust anyone. The council's law was clear, and fear ruled their hearts. A soldier's voice echoed through the streets, amplified by a speaker. "Return the cursed child, and the human will be spared." Daniel gritted his teeth. It was a lie, he knew it. They would kill him the moment he stopped. And Lyra would be lost forever. They ducked into an alley, the smell of metal and smoke filling the air. Daniel looked around, searching for a way out. He saw piles of broken machines, scraps, and rusted parts. His mind worked quickly. He was an engineer. And every broken thing was a possible tool. He grabbed a pipe and jammed it into a loose wire on the wall. Sparks exploded, showering the alley in bright light. When the soldiers turned the corner, they hesitated, blinded for a second. "Go," Daniel whispered, pulling Lyra forward. They slipped deeper into the maze of streets, but the soldiers were fast, their glowing armor easy to spot in the dark. Daniel led Lyra through a marketplace, knocking over carts of fruit and glowing jars. Colors spilled across the ground, rolling under the soldiers' feet. The aliens slipped and cursed, their chase slowed. Daniel pulled Lyra into a tunnel hidden behind a stall. The tunnel was dark, filled with dripping water and echoing sounds. Every step felt like walking deeper into the unknown. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Daniel looked down at her, her face pale under the dim light. "Because you asked me to," he said simply. "And because no child should be hunted." Her eyes softened, tears glimmering. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. "They all look at me like I am a curse." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "You are not a curse," he said firmly. "You are someone who deserves to live." Before Lyra could answer, the sound of metal boots echoed through the tunnel. The soldiers had found them. Daniel's pulse quickened. They had no weapons, no safe place, only the shadows to protect them. He spotted a broken grate above them, barely holding to the ceiling. He pulled Lyra to the side and whispered, "Stay quiet. Stay still." As the soldiers came closer, Daniel grabbed a loose chain and yanked the grate down. It fell with a crash, dust and metal filling the tunnel. The soldiers stumbled, their light breaking apart in the dust. Daniel took Lyra's hand again and pulled her into another passage. The chase continued, but every second gained was life. They emerged into a hidden courtyard, the sky above glowing with alien stars. The city stretched high around them, walls closing in. There was no exit, no door, only shadows. Daniel pushed Lyra behind a stack of crates. He crouched low, his body tense, the soldiers spread out, their glowing eyes scanning the area. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Loud in the silence, Lyra held her breath, her small hand clutching his sleeve tightly. One soldier passed close, his weapon glowing red. Daniel waited until the soldier turned his head. Then he threw a small piece of scrap metal against the far wall. The sound echoed sharp and loud. The soldier spun around, calling his comrades. They rushed toward the sound. Leaving the crates unguarded, Daniel whispered, "Now," and pulled Lyra toward a side opening. They slipped into another alley before the soldiers noticed. The night was endless, every turn leading to another chase. But something grew stronger between them. Daniel no longer thought of her as just a stranger. She was someone worth risking everything for. And Lyra, though afraid, no longer looked only with fear. In her eyes, Daniel saw trust, a fragile hope, but hope all the same. The soldiers shouted in the distance, their voices growing angrier. "The human cannot escape. The cursed one cannot hide." Their words filled the city, their anger spreading fear through every street. But Daniel pressed on, pulling Lyra through the shadows. Every alley, every dark corner, every broken machine became their shield. The city was against them, but the night was theirs at last. They reached the edge of the city. Beyond the walls stretched the dark plains. Quiet and endless, Daniel looked back, the towers glowing like fire in the distance. He knew the soldiers would not stop. But he also knew they had made it further than anyone thought possible. He turned to Lyra, her face lit by the faint stars. We keep moving, he said softly. They will chase us. But we will not give up. Lyra nodded, her voice trembling but steady. As long as you are with me, I will not be afraid. Her words gave Daniel strength. He looked at the dark horizon and felt the weight of the journey ahead. The chase was only beginning. But in the shadows of the night, hope was alive. The plains outside the city were silent. The tall alien towers were far behind now, their glowing lights fading into the night. Daniel and Lyra moved slowly across the empty ground, their footsteps soft in the dust. The air was colder here, sharp against the skin, and the stars above seemed closer, brighter. But even under the quiet sky, Daniel knew the soldiers would not stop. The council would hunt them until Lyra was gone. They found a small cave in the rocks. Hidden from view, Daniel led her inside, the walls rough and cool. He lit a small fire from scraps in his pack. Its orange glow dancing on the stone. Lyra sat close, her cloak wrapped tightly around her thin frame. Her silver eyes flickered with the firelight. Soft but restless, for the first time since the chase began, Daniel could finally breathe, but his mind was heavy with questions. He looked at her carefully. Lyra, he said gently, why are they after you? You're just a child. What danger could you be? Her lips trembled, her eyes looking down at the ground. She was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled softly, the silence heavy between them. Finally, she whispered, they are afraid of what I carry inside me. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. What do you mean? He asked. Her silver eyes lifted, glowing faintly like moonlight. My blood, she said. It is not like theirs. It is not like yours. It is old, older than their laws. Older than their empire. Daniel frowned, his mind racing. What is in your blood? He asked. Lyra's voice shook, but she forced herself to speak. My people were once healers, she explained. We could touch the land and heal it. We could touch the sick and make them well. It was a gift. Not a curse, a gift that saved worlds. But the council feared it because it gave power to the weak. They destroyed my people. They hunted us until only a few of us remained. Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at the small girl sitting in front of him, trembling but brave. A child carrying the last spark of something ancient. Something powerful. And you? He asked quietly. You have this power? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, she said, it sleeps in me, but if it wakes, it could heal worlds again. That is why they fear me, because if hope returns, their control will break. Her words hit Daniel like a storm. He finally understood why the soldiers hunted her so fiercely. It was not because she was dangerous, but because she carried hope. Hope that could heal broken worlds. Hope that could end the council's rule of fear. Daniel's hands clenched, his heart burning with anger. All this time, he whispered, they called you cursed. But you are the opposite. You are not their curse. You are their threat. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. No one ever told me that, she said softly. They only told me to hide, to run, to be silent. Her voice broke, trembling. I thought maybe I was cursed, maybe I should not exist. Daniel shook his head firmly, leaning closer. Don't ever believe that, he said, his voice strong. You are alive for a reason, and that reason is greater than their fear. Lyra wiped her tears with her small hand. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. Daniel felt a strange warmth inside. This child, hunted and alone, was carrying the weight of many worlds, and yet she still had the heart of a child, fragile and pure. He knew then that he could not let her fall. No matter the cost, the night outside the cave was quiet, but danger was near. Daniel heard the distant hum of ships in the air. The soldiers were searching, spreading wider, hunting deeper. Their time was running short. He turned to Lyra, his eyes sharp with determination. They will not stop until they have you, he said. But we cannot hide forever. We must move. We must find others who will stand with us. Lyra looked uncertain, her hands shaking. Others will not help me, she whispered. They will fear me too, just like the city. Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Then we will show them the truth, he said. Humans have a saying, fear is only a shadow, and shadows vanish when light is strong. You are that light. Lyra, her silver eyes widened, shining brighter in the firelight. Do you really believe that? She asked softly. Daniel nodded without hesitation. I do, he said. And I will protect you until everyone sees it too. The fire burned lower, the cave quiet again. Lyra leaned closer, her head resting against his arm. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Then I am not alone anymore," she said. Daniel looked at her, his heart steady. "No," he answered, "you are not alone." Outside, the night wind carried the sound of engines drawing nearer. The soldiers were closing in again. But inside the cave, for the first time, Lyra did not feel only fear. She felt something else, something new, hope. Daniel's eyes hardened as he listened to the distant sound. He knew the journey ahead would be dangerous, but he also knew one truth. The secret inside Lyra was not something to fear. It was something to protect, to fight for, and he would fight as long as he breathed. The cave could not protect them for long. At sunrise, Daniel and Lyra began their journey again. Moving across the rocky plains, the sky turned red as two suns rose. Painting the world in strange colors, Lyra walked close to Daniel. Her cloak wrapped tightly, her eyes lowered. The fear of soldiers never left her, but Daniel's presence gave her courage. They traveled for hours until the land changed. Small homes appeared in the distance, built into the cliffs hidden from the city. Smoke rose from chimneys, and voices echoed faintly in the air. Daniel felt hope stir. Perhaps not everyone followed the council's cruel law. Perhaps here they would find allies. A group of figures came forward as they approached. Their clothes were rough, their faces tired, but their eyes were sharp. Daniel raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "We are only seeking shelter," he said. The leader, an older alien with scars across his face, studied them carefully. His gaze lingered on Lyra, her silver eyes hidden under the hood. Finally, he nodded. "You are far from safety?" "Human," the leader said. "Come, you can rest with us. For now." Inside the cliffs, the rebels lived quietly. Their homes were carved from stone, lit by small fires and glowing crystals. They gave Daniel and Lyra food, water, and a place to sit. Lyra's hands shook as she ate. Unused to kindness from strangers, Daniel thanked them, but his eyes never stopped watching. Trust was a dangerous thing in a world ruled by fear. That night, the leader spoke to Daniel in private. "We know who you are protecting," he said, his voice low. "The cursed child. The one the council hunts." Daniel's body tensed, but he did not deny it. "She is not cursed," Daniel said firmly. "She carries a gift. One the council fears." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Do you understand what danger you bring here?" he asked. "If they find her, they will destroy us all." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then help me protect her," he said. "Help me show the truth." The leader stared at him for a long time, then finally sighed. "Perhaps," he said. "But not everyone here will agree." For 2 days, Daniel and Lyra stayed with the rebels. Lyra began to smile a little, playing with the rebel children in the caves. Daniel almost allowed himself to believe they were safe. But deep inside, he knew safety never lasted long. And he was right. On the third night, soldiers came. The sound of engines shook the cliffs, and bright lights cut through the darkness. Daniel woke at once, pulling Lyra close. The rebels shouted, scrambling for weapons. Some fought bravely, others hid. But the soldiers knew exactly where to look. Daniel's heart sank. Someone had told them. Someone had betrayed them. The soldiers stormed the caves, their weapons glowing red. Daniel fought with whatever he could find, swinging pipes, throwing stones. But there were too many. Lyra clung to him, her eyes wide with terror. "Daniel, don't let them take me," she cried. Her voice broke his heart, but rough hands grabbed her, tearing her away from his grasp. "No!" Daniel roared, lunging forward. He struck a soldier down, but 3 more pushed him back. Blows landed against his body. Heavy and merciless, blood filled his mouth. Pain shot through his ribs, still he refused to let go. The leader of the rebels appeared, his face grim. He did not raise his weapon against the soldiers. Instead, he spoke quietly, almost coldly. "We gave her shelter, and in return, she would have brought destruction to us." Daniel stared at him in disbelief. "You," he spat. "It was you." The leader's eyes flickered with shame, but his voice stayed steady. "I did what I had to do for my people." Daniel's rage burned hotter than the fire of the soldiers' weapons. "You sold a child," he shouted. "You betrayed hope for fear." The leader turned away, unable to meet his gaze. Lyra screamed as the soldiers dragged her toward the transport ship. Her silver eyes glowed brighter, light spilling from her skin. The soldiers panicked, tightening their grips. "She is awakening," one shouted. "Bind her!" Before it spreads, Daniel fought like a man possessed. His body broken, but his will unyielding. He tore through the soldiers, his fists striking, his body bleeding. Every step was pain, but every step was for her. "Lyra," he called, his voice raw. Her eyes met his, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel," she cried, reaching for him. But the ship doors closed, her small hand slipping from his grasp. The engines roared, lifting into the sky. Daniel fell to his knees, the dust swirling around him. His chest heaved. His hands shaking, she was gone. The rebels stood in silence. Guilt heavy in the air, some looked away, ashamed. Others hardened their hearts. Daniel pushed himself up, his body trembling with rage. He glared at the leader, his voice like steel. "You think you saved your people," he said, "but you doomed them. And you doomed us all." The leader's face tightened, but he said nothing. Daniel turned, his eyes on the dark horizon where the ship had vanished. He made a vow in that moment he would not stop, he would not rest. He would tear through the council's walls, through their armies, through their lies, until he brought her back. Lyra's face haunted his mind, her voice echoing in his heart. "Don't let them take me." He clenched his fists, blood dripping from his knuckles. "They took her," he whispered, "but I will bring her back." His words were not just a promise. They were a fire burning brighter than his pain. The council had taken her, the rebels had betrayed him, but humanity did not break. And Daniel would show them that. The city loomed again, its black towers sharp against the night sky. The council's fortress stood at the center, a giant wall of steel and stone, guarded by hundreds of soldiers. Inside those walls, Lyra was locked away, her silver eyes hidden, her power chained. Daniel stood in the shadows of a broken street, his body bruised, his ribs aching, but his spirit unbroken. He had tracked the ship for 2 days, walking through deserts, hiding from patrols, fighting hunger and pain. Every step was agony, but every step was for her. The memory of her small hand slipping from his own burned inside him. He would not fail again. From his pack, he pulled the scraps he had gathered on the way. Wires, broken tools, shards of alien metal. His human hands worked quickly, shaping traps, sparks, and smoke bombs. He whispered to himself, steadying his focus, "They are stronger, faster, but I am human and humans build." The fortress gates glowed with red light, guarded by armored soldiers. Daniel waited in silence until the night deepened. Then he moved, crawling through shadows, every step slow and silent. He tossed a small device against the wall. Sparks burst into the air. White and blinding, the soldiers shouted. Their weapons raised, Daniel slipped past them. His cloak pulled low inside the fortress. The halls were wide and cold. Statues of the council stood like dark giants, their eyes carved to watch all who passed. Daniel moved quickly, hiding in corners, ducking behind pillars. Every sound echoed. Every shadow could be death, but he pressed on, his heart beating with only one thought: find Lyra. In a high chamber, she sat in chains, her body weak, her eyes glowing faintly. The soldiers had locked her in a cage of light, bars made from pure energy. She hugged her knees, whispering to herself, "Daniel will come," he promised. Her voice was soft, but it gave her strength. She believed in him. Even as the walls closed in, Daniel reached the chamber doors. But they were guarded by 6 soldiers. He took a deep breath. Holding one of his makeshift bombs, he rolled it across the floor, sparks and smoke filling the air. The soldiers coughed and stumbled. Blinded for seconds, Daniel charged forward, swinging a broken pipe with all his strength. One soldier fell, then another. Pain tore through his body as a blade cut across his shoulder. But he did not stop. This was not a battle for victory. It was a battle for her. He burst into the chamber, his chest heaving, his hands bleeding. Lyra's eyes widened, tears shining. "Daniel!" she cried, reaching for him. He ran to her, his hands against the glowing cage. The energy burned his skin, but he did not pull back. "Hold on," he whispered. "I'm here." The leader of the soldiers entered, armored in black steel, his weapon humming with power. "You should have stayed away, human," he growled. "You cannot win." Daniel stood tall, his hand still on the burning cage. "Maybe not," he said, his voice steady. "But I don't need to win, I only need to protect her." The leader raised his weapon, but Lyra's silver eyes flared. Her power stirred, light spilling from her skin. The chains around her cracked, sparks flying. The soldiers gasped, fear in their voices. "She is awakening," one shouted. "Stop her." Daniel threw himself in front of her as the leader struck. The blade tore across his side, blood spilling, pain burned through him. But he did not fall. He stood like a wall, shielding her with his body. His voice roared through the chamber. "You will not touch her. Lyra screamed, her small voice breaking into pure light. The energy cage shattered. The chains broke apart. Silver light poured from her. Flooding the chamber, the soldiers stumbled back. Their weapons failing, the walls shook. The statues cracked. Lyra rose, her body glowing like a star. Her voice was no longer trembling. "I am not cursed," she cried. "I am hope." The light washed over Daniel, healing the wounds in his body, sealing his cuts, easing his pain. He fell to his knees not from weakness but from awe. She stood above him, her eyes blazing. Her small hands lifted. The soldiers dropped their weapons. Blinded and afraid, the leader fought to stand. But his blade crumbled into dust. Lyra's power was too strong, too pure. Daniel's voice was soft, filled with wonder. "You did it," he whispered. Lyra turned, her eyes meeting his, tears streaming down her glowing face. "No," she said. "We did it." The fortress trembled as the council's soldiers fled. Some fell to their knees. Whispering in fear, others ran, their armor clattering. The power of fear had been broken for the first time. The city saw not a cursed child, but a child of light. Daniel stood again, his body steady, his heart alive. He placed a hand on her shoulder gently. "You are free now," he said. Lyra smiled through her tears, her voice soft. "Free, because you believed in me." The last of the guards disappeared into the night. The council's fortress stood in ruins, its statues broken, its power shaken. Daniel and Lyra walked out together, side by side. The night air was cool, the stars bright. The last stand had been made, and humanity had shown its strength. The fortress lay in ruins, its walls cracked, its towers burning. The soldiers who once marched with pride now fled into the night, their weapons forgotten. The law that called Lyra cursed had been broken, shattered in front of all who watched. Yet the city was silent, as if the people did not believe what their own eyes had seen. Daniel stood beside Lyra at the gates, his body bruised but his spirit unbroken. The silver light around her slowly dimmed, fading into her small frame, her eyes glowing softly, looked at him with both fear and hope. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They will come back, won't they?" Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady though his body ached. "They might," he said. "But this time, we won't be alone." The people of the city began to gather, their footsteps cautious. Their voices hushed. They had seen her light, felt it against their skin. They had seen Daniel stand, bleeding, broken but refusing to bow. And now they stood at the edge of the square, torn between fear and awe. An old woman stepped forward first. Her eyes wet with tears, she looked at Lyra and whispered, "I saw the light, child. I felt it heal me." She raised her hand, trembling. "You are not cursed, you are a blessing." Others began to murmur, their fear slowly breaking. "She is hope," someone said softly. "She is not the council's curse, she is our future." Daniel's chest swelled with pride as he watched them. For the first time since he arrived, the people were not silent. They were not bowing to fear, they were rising. And all of it was because of Lyra. The council appeared at the top of the fortress stairs, their robes dark, their eyes filled with anger. "You dare defy the law?" one of them thundered. "You dare listen to a human? To a child of light?" But the crowd did not scatter this time. They stood firm, their whispers growing louder, turning into voices. "No more," they cried. "We will not fear anymore." Daniel stepped forward, his voice carrying across the square. "You call her cursed because she carries what you fear most," he shouted. "Hope, healing, freedom. You built your power on silence. But tonight the silence is broken." The people cheered, their voices echoing through the city like thunder. The council's faces darkened, but they could see the truth. Their law had lost its chains. Lyra stepped beside Daniel, her small voice steady. "I will not run anymore," she said. "I will heal the broken. I will bring light where you brought only darkness." Her silver eyes glowed brighter, her small frame filled with courage. "And I am not alone, because humanity stood with me." The council retreated, their guards refusing to fight. The fortress that once ruled through fear was now nothing but broken stone. The people surged forward, gathering around Lyra and Daniel for the first time. They touched her hands without fear. Her light spread through them, healing cuts, easing pain, filling hearts with warmth. Daniel watched, his heart heavy with emotion. This child, once dragged through the streets in chains, now stood at the center of a city rising. She was no longer alone. And neither was he. Lyra turned to him, her eyes shimmering. You could have walked away, she said softly. You could have saved yourself. Daniel shook his head with a faint smile. I am human, he said, and humans do not walk away from those who need them. Her tears fell. Shining like silver in the firelight, she whispered, Then humanity is my hope. The crowd grew louder, their voices chanting her name. Lyra, Lyra, Lyra. The sound rose like a wave crashing against the broken walls of the fortress. It spread into the night, carried by the wind. And somewhere far away the council heard the truth. Their fear no longer held power here. As dawn broke, the city glowed with new light. The suns rose above the towers, but the brightest light was the one carried in Lyra's eyes. Daniel stood at her side, ready for what came next. He knew the council would not give up so easily, but he also knew that humanity had begun something they could not stop. For once, the galaxy had seen what one human could do. Not with armies, not with power, but with courage and compassion. One human had stood against an empire, and one little alien girl had awakened hope together. They had proven a truth the galaxy had long forgotten, that humanity's strength was not in weapons, but in hearts, not in laws of fear, but in the refusal to abandon the weak. Daniel and Lyra walked forward, side by side, into the light of a new day. The crowd followed, their voices rising, their fear gone. The story of the cursed child was over, and the story of humanity's hope had begun.